The morning air was crisp and clean as Jack hiked through the dense forest with his loyal German shepherd, Max. It was their routine weekend escape from the bustling city life, a chance to reconnect with nature and each other. The trail was familiar, one they had traversed countless times before, but today felt different. Max seemed unusually alert, his ears perked up and his nose twitching frantically. "What is it, boy?" Jack asked, noticing the change in his companion's demeanor. Max's tail wagged hesitantly, his body language a mix of excitement and apprehension. They continued their hike, the well-worn path eventually giving way to unfamiliar terrain. Jack consulted his map, realizing they had veered off course during their casual exploration. He wasn't concerned, they had plenty of daylight left, and his backpack contained ample supplies for an extended adventure. It happened suddenly. Max bolted ahead, disappearing into a thicket of overgrown bushes. Jack called after him, his voice echoing through the trees, but Max didn't return. Following the sound of rustling leaves, Jack pushed through the dense foliage until he emerged into a small clearing. There, at the base of a rocky hillside, was the dark entrance to a cave, and Max stood at its threshold, barking incessantly. "Max, come," Jack commanded, but the dog refused to budge. His barks grew more urgent, echoing off the stone walls of the cave entrance. Jack approached cautiously, feeling an inexplicable chill despite the warm afternoon sun. The cave opening was large enough for a person to enter without stooping, but the darkness beyond seemed impenetrable. "There's nothing in there, buddy," Jack said, attempting to coax Max away. "Let's get back to the trail." But Max wouldn't move. His barking became more frantic, his eyes fixed on the darkness within. Jack pulled out his flashlight and shone it into the cave, revealing a passageway that extended farther than the beam could reach. Something about the cave made Jack uneasy, a feeling he couldn't quite explain. For the next hour, Jack tried everything to get Max to leave. He offered treats, attached the leash, and even tried to physically pull the dog away, but Max planted his paws firmly on the ground, refusing to budge. His barking never ceased, growing hoarse with time but no less determined. As the afternoon wore on, Jack set up a makeshift camp near the cave entrance, hoping Max would eventually tire of his fixation. But as dusk approached, the dog's behavior only intensified. Jack had never seen Max act this way, so focused, so insistent. "What's in there that's got you so worked up?" Jack wondered aloud, his curiosity beginning to override his apprehension. Night fell and still Max barked. Jack couldn't sleep, the incessant sound and his growing concern for his dog keeping him awake. By dawn, he had made a decision. He would have to enter the cave. Jack's hands trembled as he prepared for the cave exploration. He emptied his backpack of unnecessary items, keeping only water, energy bars, his first aid kit, and extra batteries for his flashlight. He checked his phone. No signal as expected in this remote area. He left a note at his camp with his intended route, an old hiker's habit that now seemed especially prudent. "This is ridiculous," Jack muttered to himself. "I'm going into a cave because my dog won't stop barking." Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that Max knew something he didn't. Throughout their years together, Jack had learned to trust his dog's instincts. Max had once woken him minutes before a gas leak would have become dangerous. Another time, the dog had growled at a hiker who was later arrested for assaulting someone on the same trail. Max's barking changed as Jack approached the cave entrance, shifting from frantic to something like encouragement. The dog paced back and forth, venturing a few feet into the darkness before returning to Jack, as if saying, "Follow me." "All right, Max, lead the way," Jack said, clicking on his flashlight. "But we're sticking together." The cave entrance narrowed quickly into a tight passageway. The air grew cooler and damper, carrying an earthy smell mixed with something Jack couldn't identify. Max moved ahead confidently, his nails clicking on the stone floor. Jack's flashlight beam bounced off the rough walls, revealing occasional glints of mineral deposits. After about 50 yards, the passage widened into a chamber roughly the size of Jack's living room. His light caught glimpses of stalactites hanging from the ceiling, formations that had taken thousands of years to develop. Under different circumstances, Jack might have appreciated their beauty. Max stopped in the center of the chamber, his barking now reduced to a low whine. He pawed at the ground, then looked back at Jack expectantly. "What is it, boy?" Jack asked, moving his light across the floor. It appeared unremarkable, just dirt and small rocks. Max whined louder, becoming more insistent. Jack knelt beside his dog, running his hand over the ground where Max was pawing. His fingers brushed against something smooth and cold, not a rock. Jack began to dig, moving the dirt aside carefully. As he excavated, the object took shape, a metal box, about the size of a hardcover book. It was tarnished but intact, with no visible opening mechanism. "Is this what you wanted me to find?" Jack asked, looking at Max, who had finally stopped making noise and was sitting calmly, watching Jack with intelligent eyes. The silence felt strange after hours of incessant barking. Jack turned the box over in his hands, feeling its substantial weight. He was about to try prying it open when he heard something, a faint sound deeper in the cave. Max's ears perked up, and he turned toward a narrow passage leading from the chamber. Jack strained to listen. There was again a sound like distant, labored breathing. "Hello," Jack called out, his voice echoing through the cave. "Is someone there?" No response came, but the breathing sound continued. Jack felt a chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with the cave's temperature. "We should go," Jack said, stuffing the box into his backpack. But Max had other ideas. The dog trotted toward the narrow passage, looking back at Jack with determination in his eyes. "Max, no," Jack said firmly, but he knew it was futile. The choice was clear: follow Max deeper into the cave or leave his beloved companion behind. Taking a deep breath, Jack adjusted his backpack and pointed his flashlight into the darkness ahead. "You'd better know what you're doing," he told Max, following the dog into the unknown. The narrow passage twisted deeper into the earth, forcing Jack to crouch as he followed Max's swishing tail. The air grew thicker, more oppressive, carrying a musty scent that reminded Jack of old basements and forgotten places. His flashlight beam seemed to struggle against the darkness, as if the blackness itself was resisting illumination. The breathing sound grew louder, more distinct. It had a raspy quality that made Jack's skin crawl. Max moved with purpose now, no longer looking back to ensure Jack was following. "Max, slow down," Jack whispered, but his voice sounded strange in the confined space. The passage suddenly opened into another chamber, larger than the first. Jack's flashlight couldn't reach the far walls or ceiling, creating the unsettling impression of standing at the edge of a void. The breathing was unmistakable now, rough, labored, coming from somewhere in the darkness. Max barked once, the sound exploding in the silence, and bounded forward. Jack's heart raced as he swung his flashlight wildly, trying to follow the dog's movement. The beam caught a flash of something, a reflection of eyes, perhaps, before Max disappeared into the shadows. "Max!" Jack called out, panic rising in his throat. A low whine answered him, and Jack moved cautiously toward the sound. His flashlight beam fell upon Max, who was standing beside a dark mass on the ground. As Jack approached, the mass took shape, a man, elderly and gaunt, lying on his side. The man's eyes fluttered open as Jack knelt beside him, revealing cloudy blue irises that seemed to struggle to focus. His breathing was the raspy sound Jack had been hearing, and now he could see why. The man's chest barely rose with each labored breath. "Help," the man whispered, his voice a dry crackle. "Water." Jack fumbled with his backpack, retrieving his water bottle. He helped the man drink, supporting his head which felt frighteningly light in his hands. "I'm Jack," he said, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart. "My dog Max found you. We're going to get you out of here." The man's eyes widened slightly, becoming more focused. "The box," he said. "You found it." Jack froze. "How do you know about the box?" "My life's work," the man replied, his voice slightly stronger after the water. "I hid it when they came for me." "Who came for you?" Jack asked, but the man's eyes had drifted to Max, who was sitting quietly beside them, his earlier frenzy completely gone. "Your dog," the man said, reaching a trembling hand toward Max, who gently nuzzled it. He knew. They always know. Jack helped the man sit up, noticing for the first time the tattered remnants of what must have once been expensive hiking gear. A cracked watch on the man's wrist had stopped at 4:17. "My name is Dr. Aaron Thurman," the man said. "I've been trapped here for 9 days. Rockslide blocked the exit I used. Too weak to find another way out." Jack recognized the name immediately. "Dr. Thurman? The geologist who disappeared last week? They've been searching for you." The man nodded weakly. "The box contains my research. Evidence of what I discovered in these caves. Something that changes everything we know about this region's history." As they talked, Jack examined the box more carefully. It wasn't locked, just sealed tight against moisture. With some effort he pried it open, revealing waterproof folders filled with papers, a small notebook, and what appeared to be ancient artifacts wrapped in protective cloth. "We need to get you to a hospital," Jack said, repacking the box. "Can you walk if I help you?" Dr. Thurman nodded, determination replacing the resignation in his eyes. I've been waiting for someone to find me. I never gave up hope. Jack helped the man to his feet, supporting his frail body. Max led the way, somehow knowing a different route than the one they had entered by. The passage gradually sloped upward, and after what seemed like hours of slow progress, Jack saw a faint glow of natural light ahead. They emerged into the forest as the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Dr. Thurman's eyes filled with tears at the sight. "Your dog," he said, looking at Max with wonder. "How did he know I was there?" Jack smiled, reaching down to ruffle Max's fur. "I've learned not to question his instincts. He's never wrong when it matters." As they made their way slowly back toward the trail, Jack couldn't help but wonder what secrets the box contained. What discovery was so important that Dr. Thurman had protected it even as he lay dying in a cave? But those questions could wait. For now, it was enough that Max's persistent barking had led them to save a life, proving once again that sometimes, the wisest course of action is to trust a dog who refuses to be silent.